Now you could ask 100 French what the best potato gratin is, and you literally would get 100 different answers. My take on that is that the best potato gratin is always the last one I ate. Now I want to show you my 4 favorite potato gratin versions, so 4 answers and 96 arguments avoided. What are those arguments? Well, what potatoes should you use? Should they be washed after slicing? Should they not be washed? I mean, you see, but anyway, all those questions, I will go through them and it will all be answered. And by the end of this video, you literally know everything that is to know about potato gratin. Now, I'm going to show a really simple version, a really rustic version, a really elegant version, and even a summer version. And it's all in this video. So, first, everyday potato gratin with unwashed potatoes. Okay, for all the recipes, check the link below. It's all there. Okay, first, the right potato will be a half starchy, half firm-fleshed. Starchy give you obviously an expanding starch, soaks everything up. Firm-fleshed at the same time have a really nice flavor. So something halfway in between would be great. You have the link below with those other 2 videos where I explain you everything about how potatoes and the behavior in cooking. Next, you need some garlic, and you crush that, and then you chop that, and then we will infuse that into the cream. And if you want to not chop it so fine, you can do that, and then you could literally strain the flavors of the herbs and the garlic out after you infuse the flavor into the cream, which I will show you right now. So in my case, I chop it fairly finely because I leave it all in. I find it easier that way. And then thyme or rosemary, salt, and pepper, and you need loads of that. Look at that amount of potatoes we're gonna season here. So that's why we add so much salt and pepper, because it's easier to season your potato gratin through the cream rather than doing it layer by layer. You're never gonna get that right, I can tell you that. And then you bring it to the boil. So with the cream, I need to tell you something about you need to use thickened cream or pouring cream or single cream. I found that double cream can be a bit too rich because the potatoes will absorb all the water from the cream, and if you use double cream you might find there's a lot of butter swimming on the top by the end. And then in goes a little bit of cream, and I left the thyme and the garlic in, and then you need to really spread it out. It's extremely important that you spread it out a huge amount, simply because you want to touch up each layer of potatoes with a bit of cream and butter. If you layer the potatoes too close next to each other, you're just going to get a thick and stodgy potato cake. You need to give the cream the opportunity to soak itself into the potatoes. That's why you spread them out so thick or thin, and then you basically touch it up with cream, and you keep going and going until you get to the top of the mold. So the cooking time obviously depends on how thick you make your gratin, and if you want to check that later on, you just basically poke a knife into the potato cake right in the middle for the gratin, and if you see that it has the same resistance all the way through, you know it's cooked through. So at the end, we just throw all the cream on the top and all the trimmings, and then you add some cheese, like some Comté or some Chantal or some Gruyere or some sharp tasting cheddar, and then we finish it off with a cartouche. So cartouche is a piece of paper that I will put on the top there, and it's great because it allows the steam to escape while at the same time it protects the surface, because if I put it just in the oven like that, the cheese is going to get too hard and too crusty, and it's not going to make a nice potato gratin. Then you sort of pull that off, you let it like a centimeter stick over, you cut the tip off as well, so the air can escape from the center as well, otherwise the whole thing will literally just blow up like a tent and not protect your potatoes. And then in the oven at 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit for approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how thick you made your potato gratin. And for the last 20 minutes or so, you then take off the paper, okay? Take the paper off, and then you keep cooking it for another 20 minutes, and during that time, the cheese will just brown up really nicely on the top. And here we go, there is your potato gratin. I think it looks pretty good. It's really good for reheating. You just chill it down. It lasts in the fridge for a week, and then you just put it in the oven at around 180 or 360 degrees Fahrenheit and bake it up, and it's pretty amazing. Now you should know this. I mean, some people think it's a bit too rustic to leave the starch in, but if you leave the starch in, you get a much more creamy, silken texture with a richer potato aroma. What potatoes should you use? Well, I explained that really well in 2 of my other videos, so I put them in the link below. So check out the link below. And also check out my online courses where you can learn about loads more cooking. Now, this potato gratin is probably the closest to a real French potato gratin. Now, what people consider outside of France as the ultimate potato gratin is actually called gratin dauphine or dauphinoise, which is a regional speciality of the Le Dauphine region, which is a former region of southeast France. The potato dauphine were first mentioned in 1788 at a dinner given by the Lieutenant General of the Dauphine region, which was called Duke Charles Henri. I love it. In the town of Gap, and now it's in the department of OL, and it was known as the Dauphine region. So you see, that's where it got its name from. With that version, you could also leave the skin on the potatoes to make it even more rustic, because baked potatoes have this amazing flavor. Because real potato gratin is actually made when large floury potatoes are baked in the oven, then they are halved, the flesh is scooped out from the skin, the flesh is then mashed together with butter, cream, some grated cheese and loads of seasonings, and then it's mixed back or scooped back into the skin, nicely arranged in a baking tray, sprinkled with grated cheese, and then browned in the oven under the grill. And this version is pretty close to it. I mean, I think that's a really serious potato gratin. Bacon, potatoes, cheese. I mean, how can you go wrong, isn't it? And then you slice your potatoes, exactly like we did it for the first gratin. To that you add some flavorings like garlic, thyme, rosemary, salt, pepper, whatever you really want, okay? And then you mix that really nicely together and just marinate the potatoes in that way. So that gratin has no cream, but it is actually the closest to real potato gratin. Get a pan, and it should be cast iron or stainless steel, because you want to fry the bacon in there, okay? It needs to be a heavy pan. Then you layer the molds out with bacon, streaky bacon. Make sure it's nice and fatty, because that beautiful fat will just soak itself into the potatoes during cooking and make your gratin even more delicious. Potatoes, 1 layer. You top that with some cheese. It can be a mixture of cheeses. If you have a mild cheddar, add a bit of Parmesan to it. I use some Comté. More cheese, more potatoes, more cheese, and more potatoes until everything is used up. Then you close it up with that bacon strips. And you can see that's just going to be magic, isn't it? I mean, you need to agree. So the center, you need to really press that down. It's extremely important, because you could literally flip that cake over and serve it like as a savory potato and bacon cake. But if you don't squeeze it down in the middle, it's not going to be flat, and you lift it over the plate, and it literally is just going to look a bit stupid. Okay, into the oven at 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit for approximately 1.5 hours to 2 hours, until the bacon is really nice and crisp. You take it out. Oh, look at that. And now you just open it up, and then you could put some fresh parsley on it, and all you need for that is a bit of green salad and a bottle of red. Wouldn't you agree? Version 3, the summer version. Now, no cream, no cheese. You could actually serve that potato gratin to a vegan. Now, believe it or not, I was actually a vegan myself for a while. I'll tell you what, it was literally some of the hardest 6 hours of my life. There was only one thing that I found even more challenging to cope with. What was that? Well, when I gave up drinking, you know? Those 3 hours, boy, tell you what, never again, lesson learned. Let's move on. pan, olive oil, then you add some garlic. We're gonna cook that off with some onions, yeah? So something really important I'm telling you now, I'm gonna put tomatoes in there, but the tomatoes need to be plum tomatoes, they should not be acidic. Acidic tomatoes and potatoes are not a good combination because what it will do, it will not break down the pectin in the potatoes. So potatoes have pectin, which is like a fruit or vegetable gelatin. The acid can stop it from breaking it down, and the potatoes literally will stay hard even after they're fully cooked. So that's why I need a really sweet tomato which doesn't have too much acidity. Then you get some potatoes and you just punch out those little circles like you have to. Why? There would be no wastage. There would be no wastage. You set that aside, and then you take those potatoes and you marinate them with olive oil, salt, pepper, herbs like thyme or rosemary, whatever you have. And then you just sort of stir that really nicely together. So that's the reason as well, what I said before with the acidity and the pectin in the potatoes. That's why I never see recipes where they cook potatoes in white wine, where they cook potatoes in vinegar, where they cook potatoes in lemon juice, or anything sort of acidic, because that makes the potatoes stay hard even if they're fully cooked. Then get a really nice pan because you're gonna serve that gratin in the pan you cook it with. Olive oil, put the potatoes in, you know, all the trimmings, season them with salt, pepper, garlic, whatever you want them, push them down nicely. So even you have them not so good looking, it's gonna look absolutely perfect at the end. Next thing is the tomatoes and onions go on, so you spread it out really nicely, spread it onto the top, and put that over your potatoes. And then we need some liquid. You could use some vegetable stock, you could use some chicken stock. How much? The recipe is in the link below. Literally just it is sort of barely cover the potatoes. The potatoes, there should be so much liquid in it that the potatoes can absorb all the liquid, and your gratin later on is not a soup, it should be a gratin. That's why it's called a gratin, you know what I mean? And then next you put those layers of potatoes on the top. You need to make sure that you don't spread it out too wide because they will shrink a little bit during cooking, and you don't want to have any gaps or holes opening up because you did spread your potatoes out too wide. So really pile them up a bit, okay? And then you add the thyme and the olive oil from the pan before onto it, into the oven, 220 degrees of 100 degrees Fahrenheit for approximately an hour and a half. And here is your tomato and potato gratin, which is really nice in summer with whatever, chicken, fish, you know. Okay, and now the most refined version with the starch washed out so that the potatoes are really, really, Then we add some truffles, then we add some mushrooms, then we add some brie. I mean, that's literally a dish by itself. But I tell you, it's one of my favorite ways of serving truffles because cream, potato, truffles, oh, it can't get any better. And the French, they do love the potatoes, and there's a really cool story which I want to quickly tell you. Jacques Cartier brought potatoes to France when he was exploring. The Americans, Count Parmentier, you know, there's so many potato dishes named after him, was a pharmacist, a chemist, and an employee for Louis XVI. And he planted them in order to feed the French peasant population, which was always starving. Now, potatoes were not an instant success or an instant hit with the French, who considered them as a food of the devil because they were growing under the soil, and then there were nightshades on top of it, so growing in the night. So Parmentier adopted reverse psychology and planted 50 acres of potatoes on the outskirts of Paris. He stationed the royal guard, you know, the king's guard, to watch over it. Now the local thought that the crop must be of huge value because otherwise the king wouldn't send their guards there and protect it. And so curiosity grew, and hordes of people came to see the growing potatoes and wanted to know what all the fuss about is. And the rest, literally, is history. the best comes at the end. And again, we slice some potatoes. You have the recipe in the link below. And this time we add some warm water for half an hour. So you're gonna soak the potatoes for half an hour in warm water. And what that will do, it will wash out a lot of the starch. So you're gonna get a totally different texture than in Gratin 1, where the sauce was really thick and creamy. Here it's gonna be much, much more elegant. In a pan, you add some butter. Oh, do I love butter. Mushrooms. So it's a version like that in Bordeaux, where they use porcini mushrooms. If you don't have porcini mushroom, any mushroom would literally work, and you just fry those mushrooms off. You need to cook the water out of the mushrooms, because otherwise they're going to release the water in the potato gratin, and you know, butter is cooked in mushrooms, so mushrooms cooked in butter, sorry. Just taste so much better, don't they? And then you take that out and so basically washed it for half an hour, set it aside, get some milk, okay? We bring the milk to the boil. So it's a bit expensive, but it's worth it. Put the potatoes in, cook them for no longer than 5 to 6 minutes in that milk. During that time, we will roughen up the surfaces of the potatoes. You wash out more starch, which will allow the potatoes to absorb the cream even better than in Gratin number 1. So once you cook them, they still should be a little bit firm. You don't want them to break apart. You take them out, set them aside, and now I'm going to show you how to assemble that. But before that, we need some salt, we need some pepper, and we need some garlic, and we need some cream. All the good things in life, isn't it? And then you just stir that nicely together. So that's our cream mixture, and that we're now gonna put on our potatoes. So I'm a bit lazy. I made now only 3 potato gratins today. So I just throw it in as it is. It's not gonna make a difference, I'll tell you that. I mean, ideal world, I should arrange it really nicely, shouldn't I? But anyway, and the mushrooms go on the top, and you spread them out really nicely, really evenly, and now the good stuff gets in there, and that is some brie or some camembert. I mean, you could use some livereau as well, pretty nice too. As long as the cheese is really ripe. You want super ripe cheese, you know, because it's gonna go so nice with those truffles I put on here. And then another layer of potatoes, more cream, and I just sort of spread the cream out really nicely, like in Gratin number 1, that each potato gets their fair share of cream. You know, you don't wanna leave one out, isn't it? And once you're done with that, you just sprinkle over the remaining cream on the top, spread it out, more truffles. Oh, depending on how rich you are, that's how much truffles you add on that, isn't it? Cheese, Comté, Gruyere, cheddar, baking paper, in the oven, 200 degrees or Celsius, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Bake it for approximately an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half. You poke your knife in it. If it's the same resistance all the way through, your potato gratin is cooked. Remember, we cooked the potatoes already a bit beforehand. That's why it needs less time. And there is your potato, mushroom, and truffle gratin. It's literally a dish by itself. Yum. Cook that in winter and you're done. So here we go. I mean, that was a really nice French cooking session, wasn't it? Now, if you want to learn more about cooking in general, check out my link below for my online courses. You can learn a lot about French cooking there as well. It's not just French cooking I love. I love French people too. But then, unfortunately, some people say that the French whinge a lot. I mean, some of them do a bit, I mean, not all of them. And I actually had a really interesting theory recently, and that was that, I'm not too sure if it's true, it goes that the French make their kids, when they're little, wear shoes that are too small for their little feet. So it hurts them a little all day long. So, and through that, the kids learn how to whinge at a really young age. It's an interesting theory. I'm not too sure if it's true. I made a note of it just in case. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and check out my video on fondant potatoes or mashed potatoes or roast potatoes or chips to learn much, much more about potatoes and their differences in cooking. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you soon again. Have a great day.